Hi, my name's Karina Walter and welcome to the Standard Newsroom. I'm here with St. Catharines Mayor Walter Sendzik for our monthly chat. Welcome.
Great to be back. End of February.
Yes.
Looking forward to spring. I think we all are.
Absolutely, absolutely. But you are going to be participating in the coldest night of the year on Saturday.
Speaking of which, yes.
You have a team this year for
Team
that?
STC. So we have a Team STC that's put together. We got some counselors and we got some city staff. And it's an important part of, as a compassionate city from the city of St. Catharines as a corporation's perspective. So we wanted to get involved, and Councillor Stevens threw out the challenge and said, let's get a team going. So we're in there. It's for Start Me Up Niagara, and it's helping those in need in our community. So speaking of heading into spring, great way to sort of cap the winter with the coldest night, and then look forward to some amazing things that are going to happen after.
It might not be the actual coldest night this year when they're
I don't know.
doing
It's there's been a couple years, I've walked it for a number of years now, and there's been a couple where it has been cold. So I'm hoping for moderate temperatures.
Yes.
But it's a good reminder, and I think when you do walk at night and it's minus 15 out, gives you a good perspective on, look, we're doing this for an hour or so. There's people in our community who are homeless or who are in challenging situations where that's their daily reality, and it really drives that point home.
I guess that brings us into the Compassionate City Charter that you unveiled at your State of the City, which was after our last chat. What has the reaction been to that so far? Have a lot of people signed it?
Well, it's been phenomenal. The response of that evening, and just having the banner is full. So we've ordered another banner, and we've been going to older adult centers. We've been going to different clubs, Rotary clubs and Kiwanis clubs, and getting that message further out there, and then encouraging people to sign up. So I guess what's really rewarding for me is when we talk about what Compassionate City means to you as an individual, the fact that you make a conscious decision to sign the banner is your marker saying, I believe in this Compassionate City and I want to be a part of it. So that night at the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre, where almost everybody in the audience came up and signed it, that was a strong signal to myself and the city as a corporation that we have a lot of people behind us who are saying, yes, I am a part of this too. So we're still on this journey, and this journey of building a compassionate city is not going to reach a final conclusion point. It always has to be a journey, and what we're doing is setting benchmarks. And so the signing of the banner of the Compassionate City Charter is essentially saying, here's a benchmark, here's a goalpost, and we set it up, and we're going to take that banner across the city and get as many people to sign up as possible.
Have there been any tangible effects from the Compassionate City initiative since you've started it?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's the larger part of it, which is what'll be the macro side of what kind of impact we're having. So how we've shifted our policy, our interactions as a corporation and or through the mayor's office and council, through the opioid addiction epidemic that we're facing. We are looking at our policies and decisions from a compassionate perspective. That wasn't necessarily the case 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And so when you look at what really has been a driver of some of our decision making, even working with our First Nations brothers and sisters and how that's part of a compassionate city, those are all touch points that you can say that's what a compassionate city looks like. And so that is what would be the larger, more dynamic aspects of it. But the micro ones are the individuals in our community that are making the daily decisions to be compassionate. And whether it's the JCIs or Generation Next, which is a group of young professionals from United Way, they've adopted it as part of their mandate as young professionals, young people in our community. Seeing that, and then going to the older adult centers in our community and having them talk about what they're doing to help build a more compassionate city, it's taking root. And it's like planting a garden. You're starting to see the different flowers and trees and bushes come up out of that and start to really become something beautiful.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about a few things that are in the news right now. Obviously, a lot of flooding in Brantford.
Right.
We had some flooding in Lakeside Park, Port Dalhousie last spring that did some damage, obviously, to a lesser extent. But I'm wondering if the city knows how much damage there has been yet, and are you going to be getting any money from the federal government?
We had a lot of shoreline erosion that came about because of the high water level in Lake Ontario. So we had some soil erosion that was outside of Lakeside Park, so going more down where you have higher shoreline. And we've applied for some of that protection dollars that have come out of there. The impact on Lakeside Park, we were fortunate that we were doing construction at that period in the new pavilion and the band shell, and doing updates to the washrooms there. So we were able to manage some of those construction projects. We did have some washouts of some of the walkways, and we'll be looking at what is the cost to replace that. But the higher or the more impactful cost of the high water marks came from shoreline erosion, and that was a significant amount. That was hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so we're looking to the federal government and some of their applications for relief on the high water. But it's interesting you bring it up, because one of the point I want to make to the listeners, to the viewers, is if you go out there now, Lake Ontario it's actually high again. Not to the level it was, but if you go along the inner harbor, the water is quite high for this time of year. That doesn't bode well for the summertime, and so we're really monitoring it with our Transportation Environmental Services Department's monitoring the water levels. But we did have a report back that as of January, the level is much higher than it should be in the inner harbor. So we got to keep our eye on this. This may be an issue that's not going to go away.
Does the city have any plans in place to respond to that if we do have another flood?
Currently not at this point in time, but I think what staff is doing is monitoring it earlier and saying, okay, if this is the water level today and it should be much lower, we may need to anticipate how do we protect our new structures that were built this year, and how do we maybe redesign the park so that it can be better able to manage higher water levels if they become more frequent.
Right, and in terms of the shoreline erosion itself, is it the city staff that are looking at that, or?
So it's the city staff.
Okay.
We've done a shoreline erosion, what would be a examination, because we did have some significant erosion, and this will be a very costly endeavor to really try to protect the entire shoreline. That will require federal help as well.
Like, would they be bringing in trucks of sand and?
No, it's more what would be boulder rock, because it's the high water level, and the impact of the waves coming in is at a higher level that's then taking the dirt back into the water. So you got to put the boulder rocks high enough. And so for a lot of folks who may traverse or be on the water course, you can see we've done a good job over the years on protecting the shoreline, but there is probably about 1 kilometer plus that is exposed to higher water. So that's where staff's looking at that, going, okay, because you have houses behind there, and if the more instability you're causing on the slope, the more dangerous it is for the people living above the embankment. So we got our work cut out for us there too.
Budget committee yesterday was talking about the capital budget, so I guess
Right.
this is some infrastructure kind of falls into that. What is the situation right now with the capital budget? What are you hearing?
Well, we've got a significant amount of projects that are being proposed, and it's the expectation that our roads are going to be drivable, that our water mains are going to work, that our sewers aren't going to collapse, that our sidewalks are going to be in good repair. Our parks are so there's so much to what makes up a capital budget, and it's a main, what we've called it is it's a maintenance budget. So we're not projecting much new builds like we've done previously, but it's about maintaining what we already have. And we have a significant infrastructure deficit of about $200 million. It's a significant, $200 million. And that to close that gap, we can't just maintain. We're going to have to try and get ahead of the curve. But we're asking for a multi-year budget to show how do we start to chip away at the deficit instead of just maintaining it.
Is the infrastructure levy helping with that at all?
That is part of it. That's actually providing us the room with increasing our project output without necessarily having to continuously increase the capital budget debenture. And by debenture, I mean having to debt against a lot of these projects, capital projects, you're largely incurring increased debt, which just puts it onto the future generation.
One of the things that you're bringing up Monday for council meeting is a motion about supervised injection sites, and I was hoping you could explain to us what that is and why you want to set a site in St. Catharines.
So it's a complex story, and it revolves around the increasing opioid addictions in communities across Canada. So it's not unique just to St. Catharines. We have folks who are dying of overdose in our community, and the federal and provincial government have worked together. Federal government regulates the injection sites, the safe injection sites, and it's the provincial government that would provide the oversight. And so the province and the federal government have worked together. They've created a category for temporary safe injection sites. And so we're working with the local agencies, the Public Health and Positive Living Niagara, to locate a temporary site. And that motion provides public regional health and Positive Living Niagara the opportunity to go to the provincial government and say, we've secured a site, the city is on side, this is a need in our community. It is a need, it's not going away, it's only increasing, and this is one of the tools in the toolbox to try to break the cycle of addiction. And what we're supporting is the temporary site. Any permanent location is further into the future, and that would require a lot more input. But today, we can't wait much longer. We have people who are dying of overdose addictions in our community, in our parks, on the street, and we've got to create a safe place for them.
One of the things you said in your State of the City was you were expecting a bit of pushback. And I'm wondering, is that from residents where the site may be, or were you thinking it might be other people?
Well, I think traditionally folks didn't see the safe injection site as necessarily the answer, and they saw them as you're just providing, you're empowering them to be more addicted to it. And the reality is it's not like that. It's these sites provide services, they provide supports, and so there's more to it than simply it's just a safe injection site. So I'm hoping that through more education and better understanding, that the public will see that, you know, these folks who are caught in the cycle of addiction, there's underlying issues, mental health issues, there's issues related to their personal upbringing or what have you, and giving them a safe place is the start, hopefully, to break that cycle, and that's why we think it's important in our community. These aren't easy discussions. Mm-hmm. So and I've never said that there would be an easy discussion. So these are the more difficult decisions and discussions that we have to talk about as a community.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, be interesting to hear that discussion on Monday. We have a couple of questions from readers.
Great.
And one of them asks, when can we see a more permanent shower facility for the homeless?
And that's a great question, because we are working with Start Me Up Niagara to look at how do we provide that kind of space and what does that look like. Start Me Up Niagara is, again, a community organization that is working directly with those who are most vulnerable. So we're working with them to create more space that would allow for what I believe is a human right, a right to have a warm shower and clean up every day. And so we're working with them, and we'd like to see either some mobile units that go around the community. There's a mobile unit in Toronto that is a good example of creating mobile showering facilities. And just to give the people, it's about dignity. And it's a good question, and we're working closely with Start Me Up Niagara on that. I
mean, it affects everything, right? Even your job prospects.
Yep.
And everything. Another question is, should municipalities have the power to use sales or income taxes for local government?
And that's as we head into a provincial election, I think you'll hear more and more about that. And that's something that the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO for short, has been pushing as well, is looking for additional revenue tools for municipalities. Because, you know, people are getting tired that the only real ways and means that we can provide the services in our community is through property taxes. And so people are concerned because property taxes keeps going up because that's the only tool that we have really in our toolbox that provides any kind of substantive continuous revenue to the city. So I know through the large urban mayors caucus that I'm a part of, we've talked about additional revenue tools, and one of them would be providing other taxation opportunities. I know certain folks would look at that and say, you know, no, never, no more taxes. We don't want any kind of increased tax on anything else. The reality is we're just looking for other revenue tools, and using different levers would allow us to take some of the pressure off of the property taxpayer. And I think that's a great question that we should be asking of our provincial counterparts to say, it can't just be about property taxes. Give us additional opportunities to raise revenues, and one of them would be through looking at the tax structure on sales.
I think we're just about out of time here.
It always goes so quick.
It really does. It really does. For those watching, if you want to send a question to Mayor Walter Sendzik, you can tweet it using the hashtag #AskSendzik, and I will ask him the question when he comes back in March. Thanks for coming in again.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Okay. Thanks for joining us.